Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nintendo Pipeline. In this second part of our March 16th conversation, we talked a little bit about Bowser's Fury. I hope you enjoy.
The actual main focus of this episode is about Bowser's Fury. We kind of wanted to do a deep dive on that game and kind of, talk a bit about what makes it tick and all that. So, I guess I'll open it up to Jared first. What were your general thoughts on Bowser's Fury just in general?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed Bowser's Fury. I thought it was a good length. I think if it was any longer, some of the frustrating bits that I'll go over later might have wore a little thin on me. But for the length it was, I thought it was a great mix of like 3D World and Odyssey, kind of like a very unique take on the 3D Mario, though taking a lot of elements from the older games.
What about you, Barry?
3D World and Bowser's Fury is such an interesting package to me. Having, I'm almost done with 3D World. I'm playing it with my sister. Uh, I'm close to being done, I think. And I finished Bowser's Fury. And it's interesting that with 7 years apart, right? Just about 7 years.
Yeah.
Um, that we have something in Bowser's Fury that uses pretty much the same parts from 3D World to make something completely different. It's like a two-in-one Lego set, right? Like it's the same pieces and it makes something completely different. And I think that's super cool. Between the two, I think I prefer Bowser's Fury. Even though, I mean, it's rough around the edges in some places. It's clear that it's not a main like development focus, I guess you could say. I think there are places where you can kind of tell. I saw a couple people complaining about the soundtrack being sort of like, I think the soundtrack is great.
Yeah, same
But
here.
You do hear like a
it's
few songs, maybe too much, but like
Yeah.
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
mind it at all.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say is that like there are places where it kind of like the development polish sort of wears thin. And it's not like the quality, it's just like the polish that you see in a brand new $60 game like Odyssey isn't quite there because it's something smaller, it's something different. Um, all that being said, this weird little formula they came up with um, really scratched an itch for me, and that's why I think it's probably one of my favorite Mario games. Um,
Yeah, I'm I feel similarly. I really enjoyed Bowser's Fury. It was very good at giving you that itch of like, okay, I'll get like one more shine and then stop. And then you're like,
yeah,
well, all right, I guess I'll get another one. And then, it's like you have 20 shines later, you know. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, the length is great. I like that it's short. I think it lends itself well to replay. Um, and I also felt that we'll probably get into this more specifically a little bit later, but the speed at which you get shines reminded me definitely of Odyssey, but also of Mario 64, where if you know what you're doing, or if in this case, if you just kind of are a little bit fast about it, you're gonna get shines and kind of be moving forward constantly, which I thought was nice.
Yeah.
So
I actually want to stop you for a second on the
oh yeah.
Mario 64 thing. Because I had the same thoughts too, that it reminded me a lot of 64. Like each little island kind of reminded me of like the smaller stages in Mario 64. And that once you complete a star, you kind of have to leave the level like you do in Mario 64 too. Like you're not kicked out, but often the level doesn't change until you come back.
Right.
So I thought that was a very interesting touch.
Yeah, I guess we can kind of use that as a actually to kind of segue into what I wanted to talk about a lot, which was the game's sort of format, the structure of the game. So the game is, for intents and purposes, is basically an open world, I guess. Mario game, I would say, probably you could probably compare it to like maybe like the Sand Kingdom or something like that in Odyssey if you want to be more technical about it. But it's basically an open area and there's a bunch of little mini islands and stages and challenges all over the place. So it's kind of curious how you guys felt about how well that works for Bowser's Fury. If there were any other structural things in the game that you wanted to mention. I guess we can start with you, Jared, on that one.
Sure. I really like the structure for the most part. So you generally get a choice of like 2 to 3 islands to go to and collect shines, um, which I thought worked really well for the most part. But there is a weird edge case you can hit, which makes it kind of frustrating. Also, if you hear in my background, it's now pouring rain, so the audience is aware. So there was an area with 3 islands. I completed 2 of the islands. Like I kept going back and forth between the two. Got all the shines there, and then to get all the shines in the third island, I had to like after you collect a shine, it makes you kind of go away for a bit, and usually you go to a different island. But with only having one island to go to, I kind of just had to like try to ride the dinosaur, like the was it Plessy?
Yeah, Plessy.
I had to try to ride Plessy as far as I could away in the hopes that the island would reload and I can get the next shine. So that was like a weird, kind of felt like an oversight. But I think besides that, I really liked the structure and the flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worth noting. What about you, Barry?
I think that it was successful in bringing some of the appeal of an open world to Mario. Because to me, the appeal of open world games in general, besides things like immersion and a sense of cohesion, is you're going somewhere to do something and you can get distracted. Or you're going somewhere to do something and you can find something else. And I had a couple of experiences like that. I did pretty casually breeze through Bowser's Fury, and I think it's probably a better experience than like what Jared described of systematically completing it. I'd almost say it's like better suited to like kids than gamers, you know, because like a kid will just have fun going around, and like the world gives the illusion of always changing, and it kind of has mysteries, you know, really subtle. Like, I mean, I know I'm a 20-year-old man, and when I played the game, and I think it's the Colosseum kept adding layers, I thought I had like gotten lost and found a different, taller Colosseum. I was like, whoa! And then I realized it was the same one. I was like, whoa!
Yeah, that was a very clever stage.
Yeah. The platforming in it is incredible, of course. It's just cool. Things like that, I think, have a lot of appeal to younger gamers. Just that a world will feel dynamic, and I think it does that better than Odyssey. And I think that's something that suits the Mario emotional beats really well. That you go around and things in the environment change a little bit. Things are always changing with the Fury mechanic and the uncovering of new areas. I think that's neat. A lot of time when I play Nintendo games, I'm kind of have in the back of my mind with certain games like what a kid would feel. And Bowser's Fury is like, I think it would be awesome for like a young kid to play. That's my recommendation, I guess, for parents listening.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I feel similarly in terms of the structure. Obviously, it is possible to, run out of stuff to do except on one island. And in that case, you kind of have to hop on Plessy and roundabout or whatever. I didn't, at least my playstyle, I kind of hopped around anyway. So I was just kind of like doing whatever. I was kind of scatterbrained when it came to that. I also do think that the challenges, like, you can encounter the rabbits, you can encounter the Plessy gates, and in the post game you encounter the Plessy medals. I think that kind of helps make that a little bit better because typically when you complete another shine, then like that's an immediate way that it'll reset, an island that you had just been to. Um, and then the other thing, which Barry mentioned, the Fury mode, or not mode, but the Fury condition, I guess. Um, Obviously, that's a big thing for this game. You know, it's conceptually, I like it. Um, Execution wise, uh, it was kind of eh. I like the intensity, but one, it lasts not very long. Two, the most creative the game gets with the Fury mode in terms of like gameplay stuff is just break the Fury blocks, and then like there's not really much there beyond that. So I guess I'd like to ask you guys about Fury mode in particular. Then I'll start with you, Jared, just because Barry already touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, so for a game called Mario Bowser's Fury, I would say this is maybe the only part of the game I disliked. I thought the first few times the Bowser's Fury attacks, it was exciting and cool, and the first time I hit a Bowser block with it, I thought that was really neat. But as you go on, I feel like it just got kind of tiring. Like I'd be doing other shines, and then I would just get interrupted by Bowser. One of the worst cases was if you're carrying the kittens. There's a post game mission where you can carry the kittens across the islands to their mother, and if you're carrying a kitten while Bowser attacks, your
Yeah,
kitten just turns into a demon kitten in your hand and cancels the mission out.
yeah, it just
So there's just
immediately damages
some
you.
frustrations like that, and it happens way too often in the post game. I
Yeah,
just wished I could
Yeah.
like
Oh
toggle
my
it
gosh.
off.
yeah, yeah, especially in the post game where like you're doing cleanup, and part of that cleanup is probably Fury blocks. You're like, okay, when's it gonna show up? Like, do I have to sit here and find something else to do? Am I, you know, do I get angry and just grab a Bowser amiibo and scan it in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a thing.
yeah. If you scan a Bowser amiibo, it immediately
It
becomes
summons him.
Fury time. Yeah,
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
yeah.
Is there like an opposite of that?
Not
Go away,
really.
Bowser.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there,
amiibo.
like
there's
scan
there's
like a Peach amiibo and it just goes away.
yeah, not that I know of. The other
Oh,
ones are
that'd be great.
mostly all just like you get power up.
Actually,
Yeah.
I never tried that. I have amiibos, but I never even considered it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just wanted to play through the game without, any of that, which I guess leads us into the next thing, which is this game has a power up inventory, and like it's not like a normal Mario power up inventory where it's like, oh, world map, and then you get a power up at the beginning of the stage, or like a reserve power up, but like a straight up like you have like a whole thing. Each power up in Bowser's Fury, you can have up to five of them, and you can summon them at will. And when you collect a power up, it doesn't get rid of your previous power up, but it stores it in the inventory. And I thought this was very interesting because I'm someone who typically prefers 2D Mario, and one of the big reasons I like 2D Mario more is the variety of power ups that you get that you know you can have a lot of different situations. Like you can run through a stage and it's small Mario, or you can cheese a stage, or at least, get through it easier with Raccoon Mario, or, you know, um, you can take on bosses with a fire flower if you have them, or, there's a lot of different, like, opportunities and different things, and the game changes a lot, and you can kind of make your own sort of fun with power ups. But 3D Mario typically has, like, time limited power ups. Mostly, like 3D World is obviously a big exception here, but like Mario 64 has the wind cap, and it goes away after X amount of time, and you're only can be metal for a little bit, and even Galaxy is like, hey, you have a fire flower, but it's on a timer, like, so it was fresh to me to have these power ups, and not only have these power ups, but also have it so that I was very surprised that you didn't just lose the power up when you got a new one. Like being able to switch between them for different situations was very interesting to me, even if it made, you can make plenty of sections in the game extremely easy with like particularly the cat power up and the Tanuki. So I guess I'll start with you, Barry. What did you think about the whole power up inventory system they had going on in Bowser's Fury?
I'll actually tell you what a good friend of mine thought of the power up system. Um, he texted me and said, "This is just like Mega Man." And I
Hmm.
haven't played much Mega Man, but that was such an interesting comparison to me. Um,
Yeah, actually, that is really interesting.
yeah, that you, I mean, and you have a quantity, right,
Right.
with Mega Man, and the like power to it.
Yeah, he has
Um,
like you have a limited amount of
hmm
ammo, or however you want to
and
recall it.
you can collect a quantity of these power ups. So I think it's kind of a neat thing. I definitely used it a lot. I think it's a great, um, again, great for like kids, because it's easy to gather power ups, and as a kid or as someone who's bad at games like me, you know, I mean, I always tried to have like five cat suits on hand. Like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Are we gonna start seeing actually true 100% of Bowser's Fury is getting all the shines and also maxing out your power up inventory?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, that's actually a good point about Mega Man. You can switch between your weapons for any situation, and that allows for, you can be that person who goes through and tries to do it Buster only. Um, or you can be that guy who's like, Metal Man in the refight, I'll throw a metal blade at you and you'll die in one hit. So, um, would do you think it's do you think it's too easy? Do you think that's fine? Do you think
I don't
like
think it's too easy.
yeah,
Personally, I don't think it's too easy. I understand why some people might feel that way. Um, it couples well with the open world design, I feel, to collect power ups on your adventure and be able to use them elsewhere. And it also opens new opportunities, I feel, and they didn't pursue it too much, but there's a great opportunity to have multiple power up puzzles or secrets or collectibles, um, things that kind of require both and switching between them. So in the future, if a system like this is implemented, um, you could get pretty ambitious with it from a design perspective.
I
yeah,
I, I really liked the new power up system. I thought it was one of the smartest features in the game. Sometimes there was a problem in 3D World for me where I would get halfway through a level and there would be a green star that would require a cat suit, and I didn't have one on me, so I would have to kind of play the level again. So with this, just having that power up in a block or in your inventory, that really eliminated that problem. And I thought it was a really
Yeah,
smart solution.
I don't want to like take up too much time with this because the focus should be the new stuff. But playing it again as an adult, 3D World does not respect your time like at all.
yeah,
It's like you gotta play this one if you want everything with Peach, and the only way you need Peach for it is because there's a button with a crown on it.
Yeah,
You
those
yeah,
are
know,
so silly.
it's not integrated. Like you don't need the speed, or you don't need the floating, or the abilities. You just need to be this character, or the button won't.
yeah,
And like you said, with sometimes you're just gonna need a cat suit. We don't have any here. Go get one. It's just like, I mean, it's a meaty game. I think 3D World like is kind of huge, honestly,
yeah.
and that contributes to it. But man, does it make me feel disrespected? I spend $60 on you and your little brother, and you treat me this way.
How
You
could
know,
you?
how could you betray me like this?
You know, yeah, and on that note, I've seen a variety of thoughts on this. We'll start with you, Barry, on this one since it's kind of tying into this. But um, the shine objectives in the game. So there are, the ones that are like, oh, okay, beat the level, and that's fine. But then there's, in terms of the variety of types, right? So there's a lot of ones that are blue coins. There are a lot of ones that are fury blocks. There are a lot of ones that are, oh, smash the switch and a thing pops up. I kind of wanted to ask you guys about uh, how you felt about the variety of objectives, if they felt, like there were too few permutations, or if it worked out, if they were too, some of them were too fast, that kind of thing. So I guess, well, yeah, we'll start with you, Barry, on that one.
So, personally, I think that the Bowser's Fury objectives were awesome. Okay, and I'm a big fan of Mario Odyssey, but um, the Bowser's Fury objectives are a huge step up for the most part, um, because they kind of fit into like a format, and formats in game structure are very satisfying. You know, you say that they're repetitive, and well, not you specifically, but people say that they're
Right.
repetitive. Um, but I feel like it's more like you go to different places to do similar things, and that feels good. Like every area or most areas have like P switch, or blue coin area, or or blue coin challenge, I guess. Um, Most areas have a like a P switch with a fight, like a little arena appears, magics from the ether, and you fight some enemies. Um, and I don't know, I think that sort of thing is really satisfying because people talk about there being too many objectives in Odyssey, and I don't think that's really the whole problem from a psychological standpoint. Um, Odyssey kind of leaves you feeling directionless sometimes, and I'm a big fan of it. So it almost feels bad to be entertaining an argument. I have spent on and off been fighting for years now, but with Odyssey, you find yourself um, kind of going around doing random things. Odyssey's one of its core themes is you know being on this journey with a lot of unexpected things, and you kind of or rather the moons sort of play into that, uh, because between Odyssey worlds there are few things that I would say are shared, and you guys might disagree. It's been a while since I've played Mario Odyssey, and I'm sure there are exceptions, some pretty notable ones, but those always feel like exceptions. They feel that way. In general, with Odyssey, you're going to a world and you're going to do all the little tasks that are in that world, and for each world it's different. Some people might think that's good. I think it contributes to the general sentiment that Odyssey has, and I'm using air quotes here, too many objectives, too many collectibles, because it's not about the quantity, it's about how the relationship between the game and the player, the way that these worlds and these objectives present themselves.
Right.
And in Odyssey, it's very deliberately presenting itself as chaos. And ironically, in the open world Bowser's Fury, it's portraying itself to the player as structure. These are areas, and they have similar tasks for you to do.
So
And
you're
it needs
kind of
that.
you're kind of saying like, okay, so like main island's always going to have, finish the level. It's going to have a blue coin, objective. It's going to have a
Yeah.
key objective, yada yada yada, Fury, Luigi,
Hmm.
whatever. And that's sort of, I don't know if comforting is the right word, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Bowser's Fury really needed that too. It's a smart choice because if Bowser's Fury were structured the way Odyssey, also air quotes, is structured, it would be pretty much unplayable. Can you imagine if it was just a giant Odyssey map with things in random places? Very insidiously, Bowser's Fury is a traditionally structured game in a very novel new world format. Um, and they've threaded that needle very well, I feel. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that the repetition makes Bowser's Fury the streamlined, accessible, but fun experience that it is.
I'm curious, Jared, what you think of some of what Barry said, especially the parts in relating to how the game's objectives feel compared to Odyssey.
Um, yeah, so I think they're kind of hard to compare, because Odyssey was trying to be something a lot bigger, and I think their intention with Odyssey was for you to not get all of the moons. Like, there's over 800 moons. I don't think the developers really intended for most players to get them. I think what I like about in this one, Bowser's Fury, is there's those 100 moons. It was an amount that I wanted to get everything. It didn't feel like an insurmountable challenge. None of the tasks were like extremely annoying that I was like frustrated to do them. Or on like Odyssey, like there was those like do 100 jump ropes or
Right.
trace a circle, and some of those I just did not like. There were
Trace a circle. There are trace a circle missions
yeah,
in Odyssey. Jesus.
there were none in this that I disliked as much as those. But I will say I didn't like the cat ones.
Yes.
The kitten ones
those are miserable.
those were bad.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
thought the Luigi ones were boring, where you just like chase a shadow Luigi.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah, because
dull.
they're super easy. Yeah.
They just felt like those felt like filler. But I liked all the other ones. I liked the blue coins. I liked the keys. I thought the key added like a interesting challenge where you progress through the level normally, grab a key, and then you have to walk back with the key using no power ups or all right, no power ups and no diving.
Yeah. No,
That's
that's
really interesting.
I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you make a great point about Bowser's Fury being designed to be completed.
Yeah.
And Odyssey, I agree, is not. I love Odyssey, but I only got all the moons in New Donk City, and I used an exploit for like the jump rope. I think.
That was hard. I did it. I completed the jump rope challenge.
Congratulations!
But it was
that's
it was not worth the time I spent on it.
no
Man, I got like I had like an attempt on the jump rope. It was like the first attempt I made on it like that day, and I got 97, and I was so pissed.
God.
I was so mad.
I would turn off the game.
Yeah, I was like, damn. But yeah, it's interesting. I felt that in terms of the objectives that were the weakest, definitely the Fury blocks, because that was
Yeah.
just you using yourself as a human freaking blast shield for his fire, and you kind of sat around and waited. Although I do find them interesting just in the sense of routing out the game. And that's more of a, if you're speedrunning it or if you're replaying it and you're trying to be more efficient, you can kind of route, when Bowser gets furious to kind of get some shines. The other ones that I thought were weak or weaker were the key ones, actually. Mostly because a lot of them were like, there's a key at the end of the level, and now you bring it back to the beginning. And, there weren't many level situations or structures that made that particularly interesting. Some of it was just like, I mean, granted, you don't have to do this, but like, I'm just gonna Tanuki fucking float back to, the start. I'm gonna jump off the top and return. Or, I think it would have been more interesting if maybe like, there were a few stages where the keys were not at the end of the level. They were in like kind of weird spots, and I thought that was slightly more interesting. Like, I know one of the earlier ones, I want to say it's the one with all the like, I think it's bounce isle. There's with all the springboards. They put the key like on the top of like a wall, and it's not like extremely hard to find or anything, but like you can conceivably miss it. So, yeah, I guess maybe if those were less like the keys always at the end, or like maybe the cage didn't have to be at the beginning. But yeah, I do also agree on the Fury Luigi ones that are like, they're kind of just, they feel like Shadow Mario, but like somehow worse than Shadow Mario. And I also find it really funny that you can sick Bowser Jr. on him very easily. I did like the cat like coin ones. We haven't mentioned those yet. The cat shards or whatever
Oh
it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were like the silver stars from Mario
yeah,
64 DS.
yeah, or even kind of like the red coins in a way.
Mm.
Where yeah, like it's there. You kind of have to look around a little bit. I mean, some of them were really dumb. I know
Yeah,
there's a few
I had to
stages.
Google two of them.
Yeah, I didn't end up having to Google them, but like there were a couple of stages where I was like, all right, where is this stupid thing? And it's like, oh, it's underneath, but only it's underneath on a thing on the side, but only on one side, and it's like in the middle of this long stretch of nothing. Like, all right, like, and I don't, I think it's good to have some explore. Well, I think it isn't bad to have some exploration in there, but I think I don't think they should necessarily be like a cakewalk, but some of the placements were kind of weird.
Hmm.
But for the most part, they're pretty solid. And I actually
Yeah,
really liked the Plessy Gate, the bonus
Yeah,
areas,
hmm,
and the
those are
medals.
fun.
Yeah, like those
yeah.
were ones that made sense to have multiple of.
It feels
Um,
good to ride Plessia. I guess we haven't really talked about that too
Yeah.
much.
Oh,
yeah,
it's so good. It's like one of the best parts of the game,
yeah,
and we haven't discussed it at
yeah.
all.
She's fast. She got a
Yeah,
big speed
Yeah.
boost. Like she's on something. I don't know what, but
getting around the islands feels fun. It doesn't feel like a Wind Waker type slog.
yeah. And she also, I don't know about you, but there are several times that I had just fun with Plessy, like deforesting an entire island of
Yeah.
trees.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that does play into the final boss as well, which we probably should cover the boss
Yes.
encounters, where
Spoilers, I
I
suppose,
mean,
for
yeah,
this
but
Mario game. It came out a month
Spoiler:
yeah,
ago.
you fight Bowser.
if you're yeah, well, you
Skip forward to the end if you
yeah,
don't want to hear any spoilers.
but with the final encounter is a unique encounter, and you need to use Plessy to approach Bowser, and the way that it works is, um, if you take damage from him like throwing out his weird blocks or whatever, or his flames, um it not only slows you down, but the game will not allow you to hit Bowser basically. So you need to not only be fast and be following Bowser, but you also need to not take damage. And I mean, you have plenty of power ups that you can tank damage with, but the battle will go on longer because the game is just like, nah, you suck. And Bowser's leaving, to this next part. So I thought that was interesting that it used Plessy's dive and her like speed jump, that she has in this game. What about
Yeah.
the that and the regular boss encounters for you guys? I guess we'll start with Jared.
Yeah. So I'll say I liked that final encounter. I thought the Plessy boss was actually the most interesting. I got
Yeah.
um, I got sort of bored of the other boss, the Bowser uh, boss. You kind of do the same thing like three times, which uh, it's okay in like Mario 64 when those three times are like hours apart. But when you're
Yeah.
fighting the same boss within like 3 hours, it got kind of dull for me. Though it's a cool spectacle the first time.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out too, it wasn't just three times; it's five times
That was
that
fun.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was too much.
yeah, like because there's the point where Bowser's like, "All right, well, you got my health bar down to half. I'm still defeated, so you have to come back." And the only thing they really did was, and it's not too dissimilar from Mario 64 in this sense, but each battle iteration added a new attack or gimmick. Um, but yeah, I would agree that they got a bit boring and played out by the end. I wish that maybe they had a little bit more difference, or maybe were a little less frequent, or I don't know. What about you, Barry?
Um, I thought that with the boss, it's just kind of, I don't know if it's because I'm pretty bad in general at games, but I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. I think that the loop for the main Fury encounters makes itself apparent pretty quickly if you realize you can pick up the blocks.
Yes.
Because you just pick up blocks and throw it at them, and it's really easy, and it's kind of satisfying, but it's not
Yeah.
really, because it's so simple. And then the final boss, I think, is incredibly irritating.
Okay, I'm curious.
Personally,
I'm
I don't
curious.
know. Yeah, I don't know. I always felt like I was doing a bad job of driving Plessy or riding Plessy. Um, and I don't know what it was, but I just could not send this dinosaur in a straight line. I could not. There were a couple times where I missed like the power up bubbles. There was a time that
Right.
I missed hitting him, or hitting the ball that he has taken. The I don't know.
Yeah,
It's been a month.
the thing
Yeah, the
with the
thing.
things. Yeah, the thing with the things. Yeah, that.
It was a month
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
It's a Mario
The
game.
Lucky
He
Bell
took
thing.
something,
Yeah.
and yeah. Um, so yeah, I think that the boss fights were pretty annoying. I think I agree with Jared that the Fury is probably like, I mean, it's an important and it's important structurally. It frames the game really well. Um, and I think it's interesting and it's novel and it works for something small like this for that reason that it's novel. It's something you can put on the front of the box. It's like, ooh. Uh,
Yeah, Bowser's
but
really mad, and now there's this cool art of like
yeah,
crazy
yeah,
ass looking Bowser.
yeah. Um, but in general, I think that Fury wasn't too compelling in practice. I think that one of the most insecure design decisions they made was the Fury blocks. I know you guys touched on it before, but to me, that conveys that they were concerned about the loose coupling between the gameplay of the main game and the Fury mode, or the Fury mode they call it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, that's
Uh,
basically what it is.
sure. And they wanted to couple those in some way, so they made it so you have to find these blocks. And I don't think it was worth it. I didn't feel like they were connected. I think it instead highlighted a disconnect. If they weren't there, that disconnect would have been fine if they had owned it. But I feel like they tried to cover up or mitigate this distinction between the two modes, and I think it's really lame. What would have saved it, in my opinion, is if the game did a really good job with collateral damage processing with the Fury
Hmm.
blocks, right?
Yeah,
So like if when Bowser's Fury happens and he's just shooting at you and it's like a whole thing, um, if it were constantly keeping track of which ones he happens to hit, then it would be, and if they were more visually distinct when they're gone, like there's like a crater or something, then it would be another thing where it's kind of a mystery, kind of a dynamic world where it's like you see this block that you can't hit, only Bowser can hit, and you're like, oh shit, that's crazy, dog. And then you come back later and you're like, oh, this is a crater now because he showed up a bunch of times and he just shot randomly because he was pissed.
right.
And I think that would have been, it would have added further to the sense of wonderment that comes from a world that changes, even if sometimes the seams are apparent, like Jared was saying about having to go away from an island and come back to it. I
Yeah.
think that would have been cool. That would have been a better thing. But is it technically possible? Maybe, maybe not. But Fury blocks are bad. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. I don't think we have to defend that too much.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think anyone is particularly wild about Fury blocks. No one is excited about Fury blocks.
yeah.
I felt like the game was
Existential
just
dread.
yeah, I feel like the game was kind of too afraid to lean into the Fury elements a lot because
Yeah.
it's really easy to end Fury, right? You just get a shine. And then, there's the Fury blocks, which you can basically use as that shine to end Fury mode. It would have been so much more interesting to me if, Bowser becomes furious and then he stays furious for a certain amount of time and there's not a way to stop it. Like, you can time it obviously so that, you get a shine right as he's turning angry and then that cancels it out. But like, the game is much more chaotic and kind of wild when he is out there causing issues. And I feel like it should have leaned into that more. Then again, there are definitely stages in that game that were not really built particularly well for dealing with Bowser when he's enraged. Um, Ones where it's like very difficult to find cover or so I guess that's sort of a thing too. In regards to the bosses, yeah, they were repetitive. It was silly just kind of throwing the blocks at him. I didn't even notice you could throw the blocks at him for a while.
I
Like,
didn't know until the last battle.
yeah,
What?
yeah. Like I
How
didn't.
did you guys get through it?
I just waited for
Holy
him to
shit.
ground pound, basically.
Yeah,
Oh,
ground
Um,
pound, or
you guys
I
are good at
sideswiped
games.
His,
I'm
Yeah.
not good at
wheel.
games, right? Like I was just like grab a block immediately because I was like, this is bullshit. There's no way this is the only way.
yeah, yeah. You know, even
Man, I breezed through that.
yeah. I mean, I didn't have much trouble with them, but like, you know, I had the idea of, you know, when he spins on his side, you can probably smack him and knock him over,
Yep.
but I always just, you know, screwed it up because I'm bad. But then, you know, as an addendum to this, there is the 100% bosses, which are different, slightly. um,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
could barely
are
tell the
they
difference.
different?
So I'll explain the
I don't
differences
doubt it, but-
real quick. So with the 100% Bowser like Fury boss, the main gimmick for that one isn't anything new that he does outside of his health being a lot more, but that the cat, well, the Gigabells, they don't respawn. So when you get a Gigabell, like to start the battle, that Gigabell's gone forever, and then if you run into any of the other two, they're gone forever. The other fights, they actually like regenerate after a while. So that was pretty much like the ultimate like actual like, excuse me, quote unquote tough version of that battle. And then I think the more noticeable one was the 100% version of the Plessy part, because one, his attacks are much crazier, and two, the game is much less forgiving in terms of, you know, if you take some damage, eventually getting to hit him, the game is just like, nah. He just hops away, and he then shoots like 30,000 blocks at you, and you just kind of have to figure out how you're gonna dodge through him. So that one took me forever. The second 100% boss. So I don't know what you guys felt about those. If they were different enough, if you even noticed.
Yeah, I didn't notice the difference except for the Plessy part. I noticed there were more like landmines or whatever they were, water mines.
Yeah, it seemed vaguely harder, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm like, kind of, you know, what's the most polite way to put it? Dumb. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. By that point, I was just I was trying to be dumb.
Yeah, I was pretty done with it by that point.
Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, are there any other thoughts about the game that we didn't really talk about that you guys
I
wanna
like
share?
it.
Yeah.
I think it's neat.
I like it too.
Yeah.
Do you also think it's neat?
Oh.
I do, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Phew. Okay.
One thing I wanted to briefly touch on, the post game is a little weird. Not weird. Okay, so like the Plessy medals get added, the Toad Brigade stuff gets added. I felt like it, and the Lucky Island or whatever
Yeah.
that
and all the
happens.
getting mini games.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I feel like it would have been cool if maybe like there was an island or two that opened up after main game. The other thing that I found really kind of weird is, so like Bowser, right? So he's mad, and there's this goop everywhere, and this kingdom that he's in is just like, you know, completely screwed right now. And then even when you 100% the game, there's still goop everywhere, and the lake is still completely fucked
Yeah.
up. Like,
Yeah, this happened
No,
in
yeah.
Breath of the Wild too, and I wished
They call that ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah.
I believe.
I wish there
Yeah.
was a clean version of the world, just like the same I did in Breath of the Wild. Like I wanted to
Yeah,
see a cleaned up Hyrule.
yeah,
I hate Zelda's ending thing where it's like you finish the game, go back to when you did.
Yeah.
yeah. But the thing with Bowser's Fury is that you don't go back to when you didn't, because when you beat him the first time at 50 Shines, you know, you save him or whatever, and then you go back and Bowser Jr. is like, well, that didn't work. So, you know, things are still fucked up. But then 100%, you know, he should be fine. And, you know, once you do have 100%, he no longer gets furious, but like that giant goop critter is still there. That like part over the waterfall is just still covered with trash. Like this whole like kingdom is still completely fucked, even after
Yeah.
you've supposedly fixed everything. Um, so yeah, I think unless anybody else has anything on Bowser's Fury, I think that's I'm 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 pretty good on that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I definitely got all my thoughts across.
yeah.